October 22nd, 2025, 6:47 a.m. Los Angeles, California. When the notification from Bloomberg came in, I was having breakfast with my wife Elena. My phone vibrated on the table, and I reflexively looked at it. The headline stunned me for a moment and shocked me so much that my head was spinning. Breaking: Trump raises China tariff to 155%. Threatens heavy prices over rare earth elements. My fork clattered onto the plate. Elena looked up from her coffee. "What's wrong?" "Trump just raised the tariff to 155%, I said, my voice hollow. "On everything from China." My hand trembled slightly as I opened the entire article. This wasn't the first tariff. Trump had imposed a 100% tariff on imports from China at the beginning of October. That was bad enough. But now, just 3 weeks later, he had raised that rate from 100% to 155%. David Chen is my name. I am 41 years old, and I have been the owner of Pacific Electronics Import for the last 8 years. We distribute tech accessories, consumer electronics, and electronic components to stores throughout the United States after sourcing them from Shenzhen, China. Last year, we did $2.8 million in revenue. We had 12 employees. We had contracts with 17 major retailers, including 2 national chains. We were profitable, growing, and living what I thought was the American dream. 3 weeks ago, Trump's 100% tariff had devastated my business. Today's 155% increase was going to finish the job. Every paragraph of the article made my stomach turn as I read it. At 6 in the morning, Trump tweeted, "China believes that rare earth elements can pose a threat to us?" False. They will be subject to 155% tariffs if they do not reach an agreement right away. China will realize that America cannot be bullied. Expensive costs for non-negotiators. The article explained that China had hinted at restricting exports of rare earth elements, critical minerals used in everything from smartphones to electric vehicles. Trump had responded by raising the tariff from 100% to 155% overnight. No warning, no transition period, just a tweet and an executive order. If you imported a product that cost $10 from China, you now paid $10 to the manufacturer plus $15.50 to the U.S. government. Your cost had increased by 155% in 3 weeks. "David?" Elena's voice pulled me back to reality. "How bad is this?" I tried to estimate the damage in real time as I stared at her. The 100% tariff doubled our expenses 3 weeks ago. Attempting to fulfill current orders at outdated prices has been costing us money. Costs have now increased by another 55%. This is too much for us to take in. We have no margins at all. We will lose everything. She went pale. Everything? The business? The business. Our savings. Maybe the house. I stood up from the table, breakfast forgotten. I need to call the team. I don't even know what I need to do. This is impossible. Elena was unaware of how terrible things already were, which was what I had been keeping from her for the previous 3 weeks. We weren't the only ones harmed by the early October 100% tariff. We were on life support because of it, and the plug was being pulled by this 155% increase. Let me back up to explain how we got here. Pacific Electronics Import started in 2017. I'd worked in supply chain management for a decade, watching companies pay enormous markups for electronics imported through multiple middlemen. I realized I could source directly from manufacturers in Shenzhen, cut out the intermediaries, and offer better prices to American retailers. The business model was simple: find reliable manufacturers in China, negotiate bulk pricing, import containers of electronics, warehouse them in Los Angeles, and sell to retailers at competitive prices. Our margins were tight, usually 18 to 22%, but the volume made it work. By 2024, we were thriving. We'd grown from just me in 2017 to 12 employees. We had a 15,000 square foot warehouse in Long Beach. We imported 40 containers per year from 8 different Chinese manufacturers. Our clients included electronics retailers, big box stores, and even 2 national chains that accounted for 40% of our revenue. We made $2.8 million in revenue and roughly $420,000 in net profit in 2024. Not enough to be rich, but enough for Elena and me to live comfortably in Los Angeles, send our daughter Maya to a reputable school, save for retirement, and hire 12 people who took care of their own families. Then Trump started the trade war escalation in early October 2025. October 1st, 2025. Trump announced a 100% tariff on all Chinese imports, effective immediately. The stated reason was China's unfair trade practices, currency manipulation, and intellectual property theft. The real reason, most analysts believed, was political theater ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. I remember the exact moment I heard the news. I was at our warehouse, inspecting a container shipment that had arrived the day before. My phone buzzed with a news alert. I read it 3 times, certain I was misunderstanding. A 100% tariff meant doubling the cost of everything I imported. Let me break down what that meant for our business. Before 100%. Tariff, product cost from manufacturer, $100. Shipping and logistics, $15. Total landed cost, $115. Our selling price, $140. Our profit, $25. 21.7% margin. After 100% tariff. Product cost from manufacturer, $100, 100% tariff, $100. Shipping and logistics, $15. Total landed cost, $215. Our selling price, $140, locked by contracts. Our profit, -$75. We lose money on every unit. The math was simple and devastating. Every product we imported now cost us more than we could sell it for. Our 21% profit margins had become 35% losses overnight. I convened an urgent meeting with my sales director, operations manager, and CFO. On October 2nd, we sat in the conference room of the warehouse, trying to think of a way to get through this. Can we renegotiate prices with our retail clients? Asked Sarah, our sales director. Most of our contracts lock prices for 6 to 12 months, I said. We have $1.2 million in outstanding orders at pre-tariff prices. If we fulfill those orders, we'll lose roughly $400,000. Can we cancel the orders? We'd face breach of contract lawsuits. The penalties would be similar to the losses from fulfilling them. Plus, we'd destroy our relationships and reputation. Can we source from other countries? Asked Tom, our operations manager. Not at competitive prices, and not fast enough. We chose to source from China because of the country's infrastructure for electronics manufacturing. Thailand, Vietnam, and India are years behind in terms of quality and capacity. It would take months to build relationships and screen suppliers, even if we could switch. Can we just absorb the losses temporarily until Trump backs down? Asked Mike, our CFO. I pulled up our financial projections. We have about $180,000 in cash reserves. At current loss rates, we'll be bankrupt in 4 to 5 months. That's assuming no new orders, which we need to keep the business running, and assuming the tariff stays at 100%. There was silence in the room. There was no good option, and everyone knew what I wasn't saying. We were forced to choose between breaking agreements that would cause us to go bankrupt and honoring agreements that would cause us to go bankrupt in another way. Over the next 3 weeks, I made desperate attempts to save the business. Week 1, October 2nd to 9th. I contacted all our retail clients, explaining the tariff situation and requesting price adjustments or order modifications. Of 17 clients, 12 said they were sympathetic but contractually bound to original prices. 3 agreed to small price increases, 5 to 8%, nowhere near enough. 2. Threatened legal action if we didn't fulfill orders as agreed. Week 2, October 9th to 16th. I flew to Shenzhen to meet with our manufacturers. I begged for better pricing, more favorable payment terms, anything that could reduce our costs. They were sympathetic. Many Chinese exporters were suffering from the tariffs, but they couldn't help. Their margins were already thin, and they had their own businesses to protect. One manufacturer, Mr. Liu, who'd been my partner for 6 years, actually had tears in his eyes when he told me he couldn't lower prices further. "This tariff," he said, "it destroys both of us." Week 3, October 16th to 22nd. I explored emergency business loans to cover the losses while we figured out a long-term solution. Banks were hesitant. Tariffs had created uncertainty across the import sector, and lenders were getting cautious. I was approved for a $150,000 line of credit at 12% interest, which would buy us maybe 2 more months, not solve the fundamental problem. By October 21st, we'd fulfilled $340,000 in orders at pre-tariff prices, losing approximately $120,000 in the process. We had $60,000 in cash remaining. We had $860,000 in outstanding orders that would lose us another $280,000 if fulfilled. We were bleeding to death, and I didn't know how to stop it. And then, on October 22nd at 6:47 a.m., Trump raised the tariff from 100% to 155%. October 22nd, 2025, 9:15 a.m., Los Angeles, California. I spent breakfast staring at Trump's announcement of a 155% tariff as the previous section came to a close. By 9:15 a.m., my leadership team and I were seated in our warehouse office, attempting to determine whether there was any mathematical chance of survival. Mike, my CFO, had his laptop open with a spreadsheet that told a story of absolute devastation. "Let me show you what 155% means in real numbers," he said, his voice flat with resignation. He pulled up our current inventory and outstanding orders. Current warehouse inventory, imported under 100% tariff, 3,400 units of various electronics. Original cost, $380,000. Tariff paid, $380,000. Total investment, $760,000. Current market value at retail prices, $640,000. Loss if sold, negative $120,000. Outstanding orders, must be fulfilled at contracted prices, 8,600 units across. 14 clients will cost to import under 155% tariff, $1,090,000. Contracted selling price, $720,000. Loss if fulfilled, negative $370,000. "So, if we fulfill our existing commitments and nothing else," Mike said, "we're looking at combined losses of nearly $500,000. We have $60,000 in the bank. We're already $440,000 short." Sarah, our sales director, looked like she might be sick. "What if we break the contracts? Just refuse to fulfill the orders?" "Breach of contract penalties plus legal fees," Mike said. "Conservatively, $280,000 in damages across all clients. Plus, we'd never work in this industry again. Our reputation would be destroyed." Tom, our operations manager, spoke up. "What if we try to sell the business? Maybe a company with different supply chains could make it work." I had thought of this before. Who would invest in a company that imports electronics and loses money on each transaction? The foundation of our entire value was based on now unfeasible Chinese supply chains. Other than warehouse space that we lease and inventory that we are unable to sell for a profit, we have no assets worth purchasing. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what I was about to say next. "We need to talk about layoffs," I said quietly. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She'd been with me since year 2, when Pacific Electronics was just 3 people working out of a shared office space. All 12 employees? I don't see how we can keep anyone, I said. Even if we stop fulfilling orders today, we still have overhead. Payroll is $75,000 per month. Warehouse lease is $12,000. Insurance, utilities, software, we're burning $95,000 monthly with zero revenue. We have $60,000 in cash. We can't even make it through the month. When? Tom asked. Today. I'll have to tell everyone today. I spent the next hour preparing for the hardest conversation I'd ever had as a business owner. At 11 a.m., I called an all-hands meeting in the warehouse. There were 12 people present. Those who had seen the tariff news appeared anxious. Others appeared interested, oblivious to the severity of the situation. I ran into Marcus, our warehouse manager, who had recently purchased a home 6 months prior. Jenny from logistics was 7 months pregnant when I saw her. I ran into Carlos, our youngest employee at 23, who had begun as an intern and progressed through the ranks. "Thank you all for coming," I started, my voice already shaking. "I'm not going to sugarcoat this. You've all seen the news about Trump raising the China tariff to 155%. What you might not know is that the 100% tariff 3 weeks ago already put us in crisis mode. This 155% increase makes it impossible to continue operations." I saw the realization spreading across their faces like a wave. The math doesn't work anymore. We can't import products at a price that allows us to sell them profitably. We're losing money on every transaction. We have $60,000 in cash and nearly $500,000 in locked-in losses if we try to fulfill existing contracts. Jenny spoke up, her voice cracking. "Are you saying we're closing?" "I'm saying that effective today, I have to lay off everyone except myself and Mike. We need to wind down operations, liquidate inventory, and figure out if we can salvage anything before filing bankruptcy." The room erupted. People shouting questions, some crying, Marcus slamming his hand on a table in anger. "This is bullshit," he yelled. "We've been profitable for years. How can one policy announcement destroy everything?" "I know," I said. "I agree. But that's the reality. Trump raised tariffs with zero notice, zero transition period, zero consideration for businesses like ours that are caught in the middle." "Can't you fight this?" Carlos asked. "Sue the government? Something? On what grounds?" "The president has broad authority over trade policy. By the time any legal challenge worked its way through courts, we'd be bankrupt 10 times over. So we just lose our jobs because Trump wants to look tough on China?" Jenny said, her hand on her pregnant belly. "I have a baby coming in 2 months. What am I supposed to do?" I didn't have an answer. What was she supposed to do? What were any of them supposed to do? Through no fault of their own, their jobs were disappearing because of a trade war they didn't start and couldn't control. The meeting dissolved into chaos. Some people left immediately, too angry or upset to stay. Others lingered, asking questions I couldn't answer about severance pay, we couldn't afford any. About timing, effective immediately. About whether there was any chance this was temporary, there wasn't. By noon, the warehouse was empty except for me, Mike, and Sarah, who'd insisted on staying to help with the shutdown even though I couldn't pay her. "What do we do now?" Sarah asked. "We start making calls," I said. "We notify clients that we can't fulfill orders. We notify suppliers that we're ceasing operations. We contact a bankruptcy attorney." Over the next 6 hours, I made the most painful business calls of my life. Call 1. Target, our largest client. "David, you're breaching a $340,000 contract. Our legal team will be in touch about damages." Call 2. Best Buy. "We're disappointed. We'll need to find another supplier immediately. Yes, we understand the tariff situation, but that's not our problem." Call 3. Mr. Liu in Shenzhen. "David, I am so sorry. This tariff, it destroys many businesses. Both sides suffer. I wish I could help." Call 4. Our warehouse landlord. You have 9 months left on your lease at $12,000 per month. That's $108,000 you're contractually obligated to pay. Call 5. Bankruptcy attorney. Based on what you've described, you're looking at Chapter 7 liquidation. Business assets will be sold to pay creditors. You'll likely still owe money personally if you've personally guaranteed any business debts. By 6 p.m. on October 22nd, Pacific Electronics Import was effectively dead. We'd existed for 8 years, grown to $2.8 million in annual revenue, employed 12 people, and built relationships with dozens of suppliers and clients. Trump's tariff announcement on October 1st had wounded us critically. His increase to 155% on October 22nd had finished the job. 2 executive orders, signed at different times for political theater, had destroyed a profitable business in 3 weeks. The next few days were a blur of administrative nightmares. October 23rd, filed formal notice of business closure with the state. Began inventory liquidation. We'd sell everything at cost just to generate cash to pay final bills. October 24th, met with bankruptcy attorney. Learned that between breach of contract penalties, lease obligations, and outstanding supplier invoices, we'd likely owe around $320,000 after liquidation. Since I'd personally guaranteed our credit line and lease, I'd be personally liable. October 25th, received first lawsuit. Target demanding $340,000 in damages for breach of contract. Their legal letter coldly noted that economic hardship is not a valid reason to break binding agreements. October 26th, final inventory sale. We sold $760,000 worth of electronics, our cost after tariffs, for $380,000 in a desperate liquidation. Everything went to a discount electronics chain at 50 cents on the dollar. October 28th, filed. Chapter 7, Bankruptcy for Pacific Electronics Import. On October 30th, 2025, exactly 8 days after Trump raised the tariff to 155%, I locked the warehouse door for the last time. The space that had been bustling with employees, forklifts moving pallets, and shipments going out to retailers across America was empty and silent. I sat in my car in the parking lot, too exhausted to drive home yet. My phone buzzed with another news alert. Trump had tweeted, "China is starting to crack. They're begging to negotiate. Tough tariffs work. America wins when we don't back down." I wanted to smash my phone into the windshield. China wasn't cracking. American companies were collapsing. Small businesses like mine that had complied with all regulations, paid taxes, hired staff, and provided excellent customer service were the ones footing Trump's heavy prices. China wasn't going to suffer from these tariffs. The Chinese manufacturers I'd worked with for years would find other markets or other products. The Chinese government would subsidize their industries if needed. But David Chen from Los Angeles? The guy who'd spent 8 years building a small electronics import company? He was destroyed. His employees were unemployed. His business was bankrupt. His personal finances were ruined by debt he'd be paying off for years. That's who paid Trump's heavy prices, not China. U.S. Over the next month, the full scope of the damage became clear. Financial. Business bankrupt. $320,000 in personal debt. Guaranteed business obligations. Credit destroyed. Likely losing our house. Couldn't make mortgage payments without business income. Personal. 12 employees laid off with 0 severance. Most struggled to find new jobs in a suddenly devastated import sector. Marcus lost his house after missing mortgage payments. Jenny gave birth in November and immediately had to return to job hunting with no paid leave. Carlos moved back in with his parents at 23. Industry. Dozens of similar import businesses in Los Angeles filed bankruptcy in October. November 2025. Thousands of jobs lost in the import logistics sector. Retailers struggled to find alternative suppliers at affordable prices. consumer electronics prices increased 40 to 60% across the market as tariff costs got passed through. By mid-November 2025, Elena and I were preparing to sell our house. With no income and $320,000 in business debt that I was personally liable for, we couldn't afford the $4,200 monthly mortgage. Our daughter Maya, who was 10, didn't understand why we had to move, why Daddy's business was gone, why everything was changing. How do you explain to a 10-year-old that her father's business was destroyed, not because he did anything wrong, but because a president decided to use tariffs as a negotiating tactic in a trade war? How do you explain that political decisions made in Washington have real consequences for real families in Los Angeles? On November 18, 2025, I sat in our home office, soon to be someone else's home office, and calculated the total damage. What I'd built: 8-year-old company, $2.8 million annual revenue, 12 employees, profitable and growing, worth approximately $600,000 in enterprise value. 2024 valuation. What Trump's tariffs destroyed: business, bankrupt personal finances, $320,000 in debt. Home, being sold to cover debts. Employees, all unemployed. 8 years of work, completely erased. Timeline: 3 weeks from 100% tariff to total collapse, 8 days from 155% to bankruptcy. As I write this, it's late November 2025. Pacific Electronics Import no longer exists. I'm unemployed at 41, with a bankruptcy on my record and massive personal debt. My 12 former employees are scattered. Some found new jobs, some are still searching. All of them worse off than they were on September 30th before any of this started. Trump is still tweeting about how tough tariffs are working. China is still exporting. American consumers are paying higher prices. And small business owners like me? We're the collateral damage in a trade war we never asked for and can't survive. The thing that keeps me up at night isn't just the financial ruin. It's the injustice of it. I did everything right. I built a legal, profitable business. I employed people. I paid taxes. I served my clients well. I followed every rule. And one man's signature on an executive order erased all of it in 3 weeks. Trump said China would pay heavy prices. But China isn't paying. I am. My employees are. American families are. That's what really happens when politicians play games with trade policy. They don't pay the price. They don't lose their jobs. They don't go bankrupt. We do.